It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. Yay. Thank you so much for
I'm so
having me
happy to
on.
be here with you.
Yeah.
I met you, Ali, in Mexico, Teotihuacan, and then again in Sonoma, where
Yes.
we are taking a intentional creativity class. And you have some of the art behind you of Shiloh who teaches it.
Yeah.
I can't believe how much I've learned, just how using canvas as a portal can really change us. We are here today with Ali Stoddard, who is a mother, a coach, and a functional medicine health coach. And you also have an online store, and you're really working to change the practice of medicine from managing disease to improving well-being by calming the nervous system, supporting the immune system, and rewiring our health. Pretty
Right.
amazing. Because you're talking about what I do with somatic inquiry and parts work, and then you're approaching it from a totally different lens, having had 25 years of your background in operating room, focusing on orthopedics, spine surgery, oncology. So you're really working with the body itself. And it's really amazing. So I'm so excited to have you here today to talk about your work.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much for bringing me to this show because it's such an important time in our culture. And like what you do, people are awakening to the thought that there are super nutrients, there are superfoods, there are these things called adaptogens that our body actually can use to create wellness and to create a whole different identity and paradigm.
And that's really what it is. It's a paradigm shift of going back to this deep understanding that we have everything within and Mother Earth has everything for us. And like you said, in the psychedelic earth medicine space, it's coming to the deep understanding that these plants have wisdom. We co-evolve with them. You know, in the Western world, I'm just thinking of myself now and thinking about what you do. The idea of working with a functional medicine person excites me because you look at the body completely differently.
Yes.
How would you say, compared to being in the operating room to what you do now, how the approach is and what you're looking at and what's the difference?
So the difference when I was in Western medicine, the Western medicine looks at a symptom and fixes the symptom, no matter what the root cause is. If you've got inflammation, you're going to take an anti-inflammatory to stop that inflammation. If you've got pain, you're going to take an analgesic, which blocks the pain receptors. Blocks the receptors. It's not doing anything to heal or reduce inflammation, but it's blocking the receptors. So in surgery, traumatic injury, we need surgery to put us back together again. But if you had a herniated disc, for instance, do you actually need surgery? There are many people who actually reverse even a trauma like a bulging disc. They can reverse that pain through mind over matter, through changing perception, through changing energetically their body. So there are many different plants, and CBD is one plant that's an adaptogen that the body can use to heal, to reverse disease state, to change inflammation in the body. And I think we're starting to realize that all the weeds in your yard, like the dandelion,
Dandelion tea?
dandelion, that leaf is so important. And half the weeds out there, including cannabis, are healthy adaptogens or plants that feed our body. And so once we went from a plant-based society to a chemically based society, we became sicker.
And when did that happen?
It started in the 1920s when the industrialists, Randolph Hearst, all the guys who wanted the cotton gin, the lumber, the paper, they were the industrialists who wanted to make a lot of money on lumber and chemicals. And so at that point in the 1920s, hemp was being grown as a fiber. Rope sails, all of our clothing, hemp seeds to the cows, great green. Hemp is a wonderful industrial plant that's very fibrous that was used for everything. But it
Wow.
happens, the hemp plant looks like the marijuana plant. They look exactly alike. So in the 1920s, they knew that marijuana got you high. So they attached both plants. They lumped both plants together, two very different plants, and they outlawed them. And so when they outlawed them, we immediately went from we couldn't grow hemp, which has no THC in it. It's not psychoactive or psychedelic, has no THC in it, to you can't grow marijuana, which the American Medical Association was actually using marijuana with THC as a medicine. That was their number one plant medicine that they used in their pharmacopoeia.
Wow. And what were they using it for?
They were using it for migraines, for menstrual cramps, for pain, for inflammation, for seizures. They were using it way back then for many things that we use CBD for today. And the American Medical Association in the 1920s was the biggest organization to fight against outlawing hemp and marijuana. They lost.
Wow.
They outlawed it, and we went literally in 20 years, from the 1920s to the 40s and 50s, we went from a plant-based society with all our plant-based food, plant-based fiber for our industry and materials, to a pharmaceutical, to a chemical situation, which we are today. We've got 85,000 chemicals. Most of them are man-made that we use in our food, our water, our wood, our pillows. We've got all these chemicals now.
Our rugs. Scary.
Very scary. We have there's no oversight. They have no idea long-term what these chemicals are doing to our body. Well, we know what they're doing. They're shutting systems down. And so I work with a system to try to offset these traumas, these stressors on the body.
You had mentioned too, even had they not shut it down, homes would have used hemp, which is fascinating because it doesn't get you high.
Yes. There's no reason to outlaw it.
And that we would have used it in our home products, like in building homes.
Yeah, so we would have wood houses that are stronger than lumber, actually. Hemp concrete, stronger than the concrete today, but also the wood made out of the hemp fiber is stronger, it's more durable, it's pest resistant, and it's breathable. So today we look at our environment, our internal environment in the building. We've got sick buildings because of all the toxic chemical release from the wood, from the rugs, from the pillows, from the mattresses, from the everything. Wow. Solvents. Yeah.
So they lump marijuana and hemp together. And what is the main difference between these two plants? I think you mentioned they look very much alike.
They look very much alike. If you smoked both of them, they would smell the same. They would smoke the same in terms of how it feels going down. But the marijuana plant has THC in it. And the hemp plant has very little THC, virtually none. So you can't get high if you smoke a hemp plant. Okay. You will definitely get high if you smoke a marijuana plant. So
and is one healthier for you than the other?
Absolutely. So the hemp plant has CBD in it. CBD is the one superfood, the one compound that we know that jumpstarts this system in our body called the endocannabinoid system. So
this is so interesting because I think just perceptually, you just mentioned that they were lumped together. I think now I'm just realizing this as we're talking, lumped together THC and CBD. Like to me, they're just like the part of marijuana.
Right. And everybody does. In California in 1996, marijuana was approved as medical marijuana. But it's been the dispensaries for the last 20 years that have been doing all of the marketing. And so in the last 5 years, CBD, they realized that CBD is what jumpstarts this system. So the dispensaries are like, uh-oh, we sell THC. So now the dispensaries are selling CBD products. But by law, those CBD products have to have a certain amount of THC in it, by law. So
and how much?
It's probably about 5%. I actually don't know the number. That's something I'm not in the marijuana industry at all. I was in the marijuana industry in the first 3 years. And then I found the doctors and the research, and that's all on the hemp side. So most of my patients, if they got their CBD from the dispensary, they're going to either get paranoid or high or feel something in their head that they don't want to feel. When you're sick, when you're
Oof.
immunosuppressed, when you've got cancer, there's no way you want to feel anything close to being high. And so none of my patients, that's not something I want any of my patients to ever feel.
So two totally, totally different medicines.
Two completely different medicines. Yeah.
Let's start with marijuana and THC because that's what people know the most. I think they're most familiar with because our culture has become ubiquitous to smell. And you say they both smell the same, but it's ubiquitous. People are smoking it all the time. It was different maybe years ago, but at 10 in the morning, someone's lighting up, and it might be all day through the day. So what are the benefits of marijuana?
Well, I'll tell you that the biggest difference and why people are smoking pot every day is because life is too stressful and they got to get out of their head. When your kids were small and you're like, oh my God, they're running around. You just need a glass of wine. You just need to chill a little bit. People need to chill. But the thing about smoking pot is it gets you out of your body. Now, some athletes will actually smoke pot or use pot to get into the zone and to get into their body. But for most people, marijuana, that THC takes you out of your body. So you don't have to deal with the stress and the anxiety and all of that. The kids start smoking pot. It used to be the kids smoked pot because it was cool. Now they're smoking pot because they can't handle all the stress. Look at COVID. Look at all this multimedia that's blasted in their face every 2 seconds. They can't deal with that stress, so they're smoking pot to get out of their body. So when you smoke pot, you're getting out of your body. When you take CBD in, you're actually getting into your body. And so like your friend Monica, who had the migraine, she could feel it going down through her body. She could feel it calming. And Shiloh, she's the same way. When she takes it in, she feels it calming the nerves from overfiring, feeling the digestion. She can feel it running through her body. I'm not quite
so let's take Monica, for example. She had a migraine. She had vertigo when we were all together.
Yeah.
And I've been with her a few times where she's about to get a migraine. She gets them not that unseldomly. And she said that your CBD has been the only thing that has helped. And you mentioned something about putting it back here. Could you explain that for the migraines?
So, a migraine starts at the C2 level. So it's the cervical vertebra. All of our vertebrae have nerves that come out. So the nerve starts right in the back of the neck. That's where your spine is, right? So the nerve starts there at the back of the neck, right under the hairline, and then it goes behind the ear and to the temple. So that it's called a trigeminal nerve. So we put CBD right on the back of the neck at the beginning of that nerve. So we calm the nerve. So that nerve can't engage the muscle. Once that muscle there gets engaged, inflamed, you're done for 2 days, right? So we calm the nerve, which then calms the muscle, and we don't see the migraine. So she heads off her migraine by using CBD right there topically. And for a migraine, I would say you do need the two-pronged approach. Put a tincture, a CBD, CBG tincture under the tongue, and also put a drop back there where the nerve is, and all along the nerve going behind the ear all the way up to the temple. So that's what she did. And she told me just the other day, she gets these migraines during her period. So a week before her period, she starts taking the CBD. And I said, that's great. You're going to head it off. But why don't you take a teeny bit of CBD every day so you can start to balance many other things in the body, not just the migraine?
Wow.
Yeah.
So CBD is so different than what I thought.
I know.
You were mentioning that it's an adaptogen. Can you explain how CBD is an adaptogen and what system in the body CBD is working on?
So CBD works on this system in the body called the endocannabinoid system. Endo meaning within, cannabinoid is a whole branch of medicine. Cannabinoids are CBD, THC, and there's 120 some cannabinoids in the plant. but we also make these cannabinoids in our body. So
Wow.
CBD is a compound, it's a superfood, it's an oil that we get from the hemp plant or the marijuana plant. I only work with the hemp plant. So the oil that we get from the leaf of the plants can be used as a tincture or a gummy or in a cream or whatever. But that molecule, it's actually a compound, actually jumpstarts this endocannabinoid system in our body. And so this whole system is a subset of the nervous system. And it's the communication part of the nervous system. So we have nerves, but we also have peptides and neurotransmitters and a million other different molecules and chemicals that get jump started into action when we turn on the endocannabinoid system. So it's not actually a physical system that we can take in or take out of the body. It's a group of thousands of what we call targets. So these receptor sites are like targets in the body. And we have CBD receptors and we have THC receptors. And we probably have 5 other receptors they think are cannabinoid receptors as well. But this whole system is so complex. It's the most pervasive physiological system we have in the body. It's the most important system.
Wow.
And Western medicine doesn't get trained on it. They have no idea what it is and how it works. I say Western medicine, they've got surgery and pharmaceuticals in their tool belt, and I have the endocannabinoid system. And it's the system that we were born with that is our own pharmacy. It creates all the endorphins, it creates all the anti-inflammatories, it creates all the antioxidants. And so CBD is an adaptogen. Body knows what to do with it and puts it into this system, and this system reduces inflammation, stops a panic attack, blocks a virus, stops metastases in a cancer tumor cell. 1,000,001 things it does.
That's crazy. First of all, I love hearing about the cannabinoid system being like our own internal pharmacy, because we all hear like mind, body, soul, right? And we all hear that we have everything we need in our body, but we don't really understand it. You're kind of naming the system.
Yes.
And also how an adaptogen like CBD can go into a body and, for me, do something totally different than it might do for Monica or you. When we were in Mexico, one of the women her knee was inflamed and she could barely walk. And you came along and said, that's how I knew you did this. Do you want a little cream? And she was like walking the next day. I mean, she was really uncomfortable for days.
Yeah.
So for her, it went in and what? Just reduce the inflammation in the knee area?
Yeah. So what happens with CBD topically, we have what we call peripheral nerves. So we have nerves that are right underneath the skin, but we have receptors, cannabinoid receptors in the skin. So when you put CBD on, the receptor takes the CBD and brings it right to the nerve cell, the peripheral nerve cell. So the knee pain went away like literally in 5 minutes. And I see that, I can't even tell you how many like older adults. I've been working with this pain on the bottom of my foot. I put the CBD on the bottom of my foot. I haven't been able to walk like this my whole life since I was 6 years old. I mean, I get these stories that are just blow your mind. And it's because we have CBD receptors in our body where we are wired to use this plant.
It's so bizarre because as you're saying it, I mean, with the psychedelic and earth medicine space, I always think, gosh, there's like a war on consciousness. These medicines are here to help us go into other realms, to have us not only go in cosmic realms, which are also within, but to get a deep understanding in relationship to nature, ourselves, God. And there's a war on consciousness. This sounds almost like a war on the human body, to not, for all those years that it was illegal and the fact that it's not even taught in medical school, this is the very system that turns on our pharmacy and our needs. It's pretty wild.
It's pretty wild, isn't it? Where we've come as a culture, unfortunately, in the 1980s, the American Medical Association was taken to court by the Chiropractic Association. And the chiropractors won. The American Medical
Wow.
Association was trying to denigrate anybody, naturopaths, chiropractors, anybody that dealt with the healing of the internal body.
They were
And
like quacks,
they
right?
were
There was
they
like
were
they even used
quacks.
the word. It became
Yes.
like
Yes.
a quack, or
Yeah.
it's like the witches of the past, right? They were
Right.
the homeopathic medicine doctors
That's right.
and knew alchemy potentially and other magical things that
Right.
really has been hidden.
And that's part of what Shiloh teaches is the
Mm-hmm.
feminine. When we were a matriarchal society, it was
Mm-hmm.
the women of the society that held the family together, that gave the plants, that was the medicine woman, that wrote the cave art on the walls and wrote the stories and held the stories. It wasn't till thousands of years later that we turned into this patriarchy and we lost our connection with the earth, Mother Earth, and our body. Here's something very interesting. When our blood transfers the oxygen and the nutrients into the cell, it can only be done under the same energy as the earth's energy. So when
Whoa,
we,
say that again.
okay,
So
so
when we inhale,
the blood carries oxygen and nutrients. The blood brings those oxygen and nutrients into the capillaries, into the cells. That transfer of oxygen and nutrients into each of our cells can only be done if the body is under the earth's energy. Now, what you've heard of earthing, putting your feet in the soil, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's because that earth energy is very important for our body. The further we get away from the earth's energy, when we stop being out in the sun, when we put plastic shoes on, when we put pharmaceuticals or chemicals into our body, the more superficial chemical we are, the less under the earth's energy we are. It's incredible. So
Wow.
all the indigenous peoples, they were working with the plants and their feet were in the soil. They were hugging
Yeah.
trees. They were working with the plant. The plant medicine gives us the earth energy,
Yeah. It's pretty
right?
wild.
For getting rid of recess.
So, CBD, can you tell me some of the things that it could support somebody with?
Sure. I'm working with a 2-month-old baby who's literally oxygen deprived at her brain. She can't even suck and bring in milk. And so anything from the nervous system to growing blood vessels to pain. So I work with anxiety, ADHD, autism. I work with cancer patients. What we're trying to do is stop the inflammation, stop the metastases. I work with chronic pain. I've gotten a Vietnam vet off of all of his meds, literally within a year. He was off of
Wow.
every single med.
Incredible.
I reversed somebody's PTSD. I have helped a diabetic get off of her diabetic medicine. Every function in the body is touched and regulated by the endocannabinoid system. So when we look at like anxiety, there's 1,000,001 people out there with anxiety and panic attacks. So let's give them brain food, omega-3s, vitamin D3, K2, and CBD. Those three things I literally think everybody needs. And myself, I'm an athlete. I was in the sun. I was a swimmer, rugby player. I play soccer. I'm in the sun all the time. We get our vitamin D from the sun. And 10 years ago, my vitamin D level was horrifically low at 21. Well, if
Wow.
you have a low vitamin D level, you have a higher susceptibility for infection from viruses, bacteria, pathogens. Our
Wow.
immune health, one metric we can test for our immune health is our vitamin D level. So
Wow.
as a functional medicine, I look at nutrition, I look at pain, I look at stress, I look at chemicals that are coming into the body and try to find root cause. And then the endocannabinoid system will affect the inflammation. I know that right off the hand. But sometimes we have to detox. Sometimes we have to change our relationships, change our chemical input. So
Wow.
it's complicated, but their body's complicated.
When someone comes to you, do you have them do a blood test? Are you checking all of their panels?
So we do a gut test here. from a company that takes a stool sample and a DNA sample, and they'll do a saliva sample too. So we'll get a baseline of understanding of what's your mitochondrial health, what's your cellular health, what foods, what healthy foods are you taking in every day that's creating inflammation. So for instance, my friend, she doesn't have the bacteria in her digestion to digest mushrooms and onions. So every time she ate mushrooms and onions, she's creating inflammation in her gut.
Wow.
Whereas my gut biome can digest it. So that wasn't on my list. My avoid list were two things, lobster and caffeine. And I already knew that. I didn't know that about lobster, but caffeine, yeah. So we get a whole list of these foods are your superfoods. These are the foods you avoid. When we know what foods to avoid, we begin to reduce inflammation coming into the body on a daily basis. When we reduce the inflammation, then we can really start to heal. Every day, I have patients who do not want to change their diet, so they just take CBD. Half of them, it works like that. The other half, well, we're going to have to change your diet maybe a little bit. So everybody's different. When we start getting symptoms, it means that your body has a toxic load that is too high, and now you're seeing symptoms.
Now, is there any downside to CBD?
Well, the downside is that it's not regulated. And so you can get a CBD capsule that may not have any CBD in it. You can get a CBD capsule or a CBD gummy that might have 20 different artificial flavors and binders and stuff in it, and maybe no CBD. So even the poorest CBD that's really from the plant, that's grown poorly, manufactured poorly, that can have some benefit because it's this molecule that's feeding the system. It's a very bitter oil. So most of the manufacturers out there heat up the oil because it comes off the plant looking like tar. It's very sticky. It's very difficult to work with. So they heat it up. And when you heat up a vegetable or a plant, you heat off all the nutrients.
Right.
Well, this plant is one of the most complex plants in the world. It has over 800 different bioactive components to it. When you start heating it up, you're heating off those bioactive components.
So cold pressing, is that how you do yours?
Yeah, most of the products out there are distillates, which mean they distill just the CBD, and all those 799 other aren't in the medicine. So everything's cold processed on my website. I want to keep as much plant material and cannabinoids and terpenes and polyphenols and omega-3s and vitamins in the plant, in the medicine. So we cold process everything here. Yeah.
And all organic.
So some of the products I have are some other companies, just because some people like the taste, but all of my stuff on my website that says Green Alley, it's biodynamic and organic. So everybody wants to start with a gummy, and a gummy has 15 milligrams of CBD. Well, if your endocannabinoid system isn't working and you take in 15 milligrams of CBD, you might get a hot flash, or it might not work at all, or it might be too much. So I always start people with I do a full health intake. So yes, I have a consultation, a 1-hour consultation. I'll do a full health intake, and I'll ask you, what are your stressors? What are you allergic to? What are your prescriptions? What are your diagnoses? What are your symptoms? And then I'll go from there, because that gives me a base point, but doesn't give me a lot. But if you're somebody who's hypersensitive to drugs, can't metabolize drugs very well, allergic to 20 different foods, very sensitive, has double jointed joints, those people, that endocannabinoid system isn't working. If you've got fibromyalgia, your endocannabinoid system isn't working. Many of us, the endocannabinoid system isn't working. So I start with 1 drop under the tongue. If that's too much, that gives you a hot flash or a headache, then we'll put 1 drop in a glass of water. Or we'll use Dr. Blair's beta-caryophyllene, another big word, but it's a plant nutrient that actually turns on the CBD receptors. So for many of us, the CBD receptors aren't turned on, or that endocannabinoid system isn't working.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do this, because what you're saying is potentially my cannabinoid system could be not working?
Correct. Correct. CBD doesn't work for me. Well, your endocannabinoid system's not working. That it may be that you're not taking in the right kind of hemp or the right kind of CBD, or it's not really CBD, or it's not organic, or it's got too much crap in it. There's a million and one things why the CBD wouldn't work. And that's why I do a health intake. But normally, if you're somebody who's really sensitive to a lot of things, it's not working. You've used CBD a million times, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Your system's not working. So we got to jumpstart it.
Yes. So if I took a little drop, would I feel altered at all?
No, you shouldn't.
No.
Never. But if your system wasn't working and you're highly sensitive to everything and you took a drop under the tongue, you might get a hot flash or you might get a headache. And you'd get it literally within a minute.
So in like resetting the nervous system,
yeah.
Because again, in a lot of the work that I do, I'm just seeing people's nervous systems that are hijacked from childhood, patterns of life playing out at 30, 40, 50 that are really a child's nervous system. So in supporting someone to reset that, how would you go about that?
I would do some work like Shiloh does on the canvas, because what she's doing is she's engaging the nervous system, which is engaging the endocannabinoid system, changing perception. So dealing with the trauma, that's a great way, but you can also just use CBD to rewire. I had a 54-year-old who literally got rid of his PTSD in a week, and he had used CBD before. I said, well, try mine. Used it for a week, no change. I said, well, double your dose. He doubled his dose, used it twice a day. Within a week, it was gone. Like his wife said, we got Victor back. He's back. He's happier. He's smiling more. He's not reactive. He's not grumpy. For kids, we see it right away. For adults who are in memory care, they get really anxious and angry. Literally overnight, they'll get calm. They're not as reactive. Their executive function goes up. A million and one things I've seen. It's just incredible what we can do with the nervous system, because the endocannabinoid system is part of the nervous system. It's the communication part of the nervous system. Somebody who's got anxiety, who wants to rewire their brain, I'd give them brain food. That's omega-3s. I'd make sure their vitamin D3, K2, their blood level of vitamin D is up to 100 ng per ml. And 2,000 milligrams of DHA plus EPA. That's the type of omega-3 that have been studied. That's the brain food, that the membranes in the brain are made from omega-3 fats. So, so there's it's complicated, but it's simple.
How did you come to this? Had you done any earth medicines, like plant medicine, psychedelics, anything like that?
I came to this because I was an athlete. And so for most of my life, I was at a very high competitive athletic level, and I was able to detox naturally through my athletics. And then when I had children and was a single mom and more stressors, toxic load got higher, too many pasta and bread, because I'm an athlete and eat the carbo load, which isn't true. I started to get sick. I started to have chronic pain. I started to have anxiety even. I started to have adrenal fatigue. I mean, I've had a million and one things, and I've had to go back and figure out what the heck, because my doctors had no idea. When I started learning about nutrition and the endocannabinoid system, I put them two and two together. All of my training, I have a BA in environmental science from UC Berkeley, and the rest has been self-taught. And I learned about nutrition. I learned about the endocannabinoid system, and I need to learn more about some of the other things that you're doing, because those adaptogens are being used by different receptors in the brain, in the body, for different areas of need. And so it's all connected, and it's all a learning process. I work with physicians. I've always worked with physicians and surgeons. I taught my CBD doctor, who has taught me everything about CBD, I taught him about nutrition. When he got a stroke, and I believe it was from a certain vaccine, I told him, you got to go on 5,000 milligrams of DHA and EPA. And he did. And so we're
And what is
teaching
that?
each other. So that's the omega-3 fats
Okay.
that we look for in fish oil. So on the back of the
Right.
label, it'll say DHA and it'll say EPA, and it'll give you milligrams of each. We need 2,000 milligrams of
Need to
DHA
write
plus
this down.
EPA.
Every day?
Yeah. Yeah. Either that or 3 sardines every day.
I love sardines. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Fish
Ali,
oil.
you're coming here in the perfect time. I really want to actually come to you, get my test done, and see where I am. Wow.
Yeah. It's important to get the baseline and then see how it changes. I mean, I've got women on my soccer team and they've got high cholesterol. And I'm like, dude, don't let them tell you you have high cholesterol. They're taking the wrong tests. That shows you have high cholesterol. Well, my doctor told me I have high cholesterol. I'm fit. I'm 62. I got muscles and I'm
What?
fit. I
Are
have
you
high
really?
cholesterol.
You
Yeah, I'm
are
62.
so fit. Oh my gosh. That's
But-
amazing.
But my high cholesterol is
Right.
the cholesterol my body produces to heal other parts of the body. Our body, that pharmacy, is creating cholesterol to heal different inflammatory states in our body. So when Western medicine is testing you for cholesterol, they're testing the whole cholesterol and they're not discerning, is that the good or the bad? Well, HDL and LDL? Well, LDL is the bad cholesterol in our body. But there's 2 forms of bad. One's fluffy, one's dense. I make a
Wow.
lot of fluffy.
Mm.
That's the good stuff.
Wow.
The dense
Fluffy
comes from the
cholesterol.
food. I have
Who
fluffy
knew?
cholesterol. So
Who knew?
my cholesterol level is 234, but my triglycerides are way down there, below 9. So
I like the idea too of a functional doctor who
Yeah.
has used themselves as the experiment because
Yeah.
of their own desire for health and well-being.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're working with female athletes. You were mentioning something before where a lot of athletes in the middle now of a race or something will
Mhm.
use CBD. Why would they do that?
Because as we work out, as we compete, we're creating lactic acid in each of our cells. And that lactic acid is not allowing the ATP or the energy reserves to be exposed. And so she's an Ironman. She does the big swim. Then you do I don't know what it is, 20-mile bike ride or something, and then a 26-mile run. During the bike ride, she'll pop a CBD gummy in her mouth because the endocannabinoid system will start to detox her cells on a minute by minute, second by second basis. So she actually has more endurance. She has more
Wow.
access to our ATP. Each cell isn't getting globbed up with this lactic acid.
Wow.
It's a lot more complicated than
Yeah.
that, but that's
Very
the end
interesting.
all. So yeah, our athletes, anybody who's sick, we all need our endocannabinoid system to be jump-started. Do we need
What
it?
are other
No.
ways we can jumpstart it?
There are 2 ways to jumpstart the endocannabinoid system. One is CBD, and the other is beta-caryophyllene, which is it's a terpene. So you know when you smell the lemon, it's got that bright smell. Well, that's a
Love it.
terpene. That's a
Mhm.
terpene. That terpene also uplifts us. We've got 100 terpenes in the cannabis plant. And
Wow.
you've got a bunch of terpenes in that lemon. So beta-caryophyllene or BCP is a terpene found in many plants, including the allspice. So Dr. Philip Blair, you can find him on LinkedIn, he developed this beta-caryophyllene to turn on the CBD receptors. So beta-caryophyllene or BCP can turn on the receptors, and CBD can strengthen and turn on the endocannabinoid system. But literally, the only 2 things that we have found are CBD and BCP. Now, we also make CBD in the body, but we cannot make CBD in our body if we don't have enough omega-3s.
Wow. So they
We make-
really do go together, those omegas and the CBD.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So it's really important for us to take in omega-3 fats Because if we don't have enough omega-3 fats, we can't make our own CBD in the body.
You're a medicine woman. This is your
Yeah.
medicine.
This is my medicine. Yes, I am.
So in our painting class, one of the things that is part of the question is, just like we were talking about earlier, the cave drawings and these ancient sites that we go to visit to, and the art, and going and looking at the symbols and coming back. And I was talking to somebody recently who told me about how many cave drawings have things like mushrooms. And we've been thinking about, what image would you leave if you had one image to leave and you knew that 500 years from now, people would get something from this image? What would yours be?
Well, it would be the hemp leaf, because the oil only comes from the leaf. Doesn't come from the stem, doesn't come from the seed. It only comes from the leaf. I don't know who decided to fire up that leaf, but only when you fire up the marijuana leaf does it get you high. The raw leaf doesn't get you high. And the hemp leaf, even if you fire up the hemp leaf, it doesn't get you high. So the cave people were eating all of these weeds all around them. And I truly believe, based on your blood type, there were 1,500 land strains of marijuana all around the world. And an African strain, if you're from Africa, which we all are, but if most of your DNA now says Africa, you should probably use an African strain. Same thing with Mexico or wherever. But I also think the indigenous plants to that area feed your system too.
Right.
Right? So I think it's all connected. Everything now is so jumbled and homogenized and interconnected and interwoven. The hemp plant has been interbred. All of our seeds and our plants have been interbred. But we went out to the vineyard the other day and he showed me, see that weed? If you eat that, we tasted it. It tasted just like watercress. Highly anti-inflammatory. It's a superfood. Most of the weeds around us are superfoods. Yeah, the cave drawings, the women of the community held the stories. So they're the ones who did the cave art. And what the cave art shows us, it's not men holding spears, hunting the big animals. It's women holding plants, walking with the big animals, because the animals taught them where the food and the water was.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you step out of the industrial, military, pharma marketplace and back onto the soil and return to the mother, to the feminine, to dreams, to paintings, to using earth as our medicine. And it's pretty wild.
It's not man versus woman. It's a sensibility. I have the most beautiful son in the world, and he understands the energy of the earth and the plants and the ocean. So it's not man against woman. It's literally a sensibility that we have lost.
And we can use that masculine, feminine, because we both have the masculine and feminine within. But you could even call it intuition versus linear thinking. Sometimes that becomes a lot for people. I don't know. Anything else you would want someone to know? I mean, what I would want people to know, just in hearing how CBD is made and how buying it at the dispensaries, it doesn't sound like that's where you would want to get your CBD in for something that's so important in the body. So how can people reach you? And
so I have a website, greenalleycbd.com, and alley is spelled A-L-L-E-Y, because way back in the day, I'm taking cannabis out of the back alley and turning it into a green alley. However, my name is A-L-I, and so it confuses the heck out of people. So
oh my gosh,
I just want people to keep thinking.
Right.
But Green Alley, A-L-L-E-Y, CBD.com, or greenalleywellness.com is my website. And any of your listeners or viewers, if they want a free consult, I give a free 30-minute consult on my website. If any of your listeners want, say, a mental health template. So everything I talked about, the omega-3s, the vitamin D, the CBD, how it has to be processed. I have a lot of templates that I can give to your listeners free of charge if they want, because I really do believe that we have been taught everything the wrong way about how our body works and how to be healthy and how to reverse disease state and how to fend off pathogens. And so I have a consultation site on my website, free consult. And any of your listeners, if they want to email me, they can email me and say, hey, I listened to you on the Psychedelic Mama, and I'll give them a template. I'll send them some free information.
And then also, I started a new newsletter that goes out each week with the podcast, which is called Microdose. It's usually insights from the guest or something about that. So maybe what I'll do too is gather some more information from you that you'd want to put in and put some of that in the newsletter.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yes. Yeah. I also have a newsletter that I teach everybody about omega-3s, vitamin D, CBD. I have a newsletter that I put out about twice a month. And I'm always saying, okay, you have anxiety, look at this, this, and this. Oh, you have cancer, look at this, this, and this. And so I try to teach people about the food they're eating and the nutrition we need to bring into the body to heal ourselves. So I also have a newsletter. I do a lot of talks. I've been on The Brain Possible. I've been Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I've been on Good Morning America. Done a lot of really cool stuff. The word needs to get out. I'm grateful that you can help me with that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to come to you. Maybe what we'll do is we'll do a follow-up after I go through your little program and start trying CBD. Let's do a follow-up.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
I love that.
That'd be great.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Ali.